If we want devices from all over the internet to be able to connect to our Palo Alto firewall and verify that they're talking to the right device and use SSL, we are going to need a digital certificate that can be verified by those browsers on the internet. And one solution to doing that is to get a certificate issued to the Palo Alto firewall from a certificate authority that's part of the public key infrastructure. In this nugget, using a Microsoft CA server as an example, we'll walk through the process together of requesting and installing certificates on the Palo Alto from an external certificate authority. Let's begin. So here's our game plan. I've got a Windows 2012 server sitting on the 192.168.1 network at .111. And on that Windows 2012 server, I added a role of being a certificate authority for Microsoft Certificate Services. I also set up properties of the certificate authority to automatically grant certificate requests. And for details regarding how to configure and work with 2012, including certificate services, please check out one of our many Windows Server courses here at CPT Nuggets for more training specifically on Microsoft Windows and Windows Server. So here in my lab, I wanted to have you be aware of what we're going to be using for a certificate authority. Now in production, the benefit of using a PKI certificate authority would be that the browsers out on the internet already have trusted and know how to verify a signature from a PKI certificate authority. And the process for submitting a request is done slightly differently depending on which CA you're using. And the certificate authority you choose to use will have details on how to use their services. So for our lab, we're going to use Microsoft Certificate Services with our Windows server acting as a standalone CA server. And the process that we're going to use on getting the certificates involved on this Palo Alto firewall are first, we are going to generate a CSR, a certificate signing request. We're going to generate this request, and part of that process is also going to have the Palo Alto firewall generate a public and private key pair. And then we're going to take that request and we're going to give that request over to our certificate authority, saying, please, may we have an identity certificate for the Palo Alto firewall. And then on the Palo Alto firewall, we're going to install the root certificate from our CA, and we're also going to install our identity certificate. And the identity certificate is the one that we requested and got. And if there's a hierarchical structure, we may need to install any intermediate CAs as well in a production environment. And again, the certificate authority that we use specifically will have instructions and which certificates are needed to install so that the entire chain can be verified all the way up to the root. In our case, with Microsoft Certificate Services with a single standalone certificate authority, all we're going to need is the root CA certificate installed on the Palo Alto and the identity certificate. To generate the certificate signing request, we're going to select the Device tab up here on the top right. And then over here on the left, we're going to go down to Certificates. Now, you may remember when we did the outbound SSL decryption policies, we used a self-signed certificate, and that's right here. And this is also the place we would go in the interface under Device and Certificates to create a certificate signing request. And to do that, we're going to select the Generate link here near the bottom. So we'll click on Generate. And let's name this PA-SSL. And then for the common name, let's go ahead and use just the IP address of the outside interface of 192.168.1.250. And the difference between a self-signed certificate, which we did previously, and generating a CSR is that we are not going to check this box that says certificate authority. Instead, we're going to do a sign by, and we're going to select external authority. And then it has CSR in parentheses right here. And then down here, we can fill in the details regarding our organization and state and location. And then we'll click on Generate. So we'll click on OK. And if we take a look at the details, here it says pending. So what we need to do is take this, export it, and then go ahead and use this as we request an identity certificate from a CA. So with the PA-SSL selected, we'll click on Export down here near the bottom. So we'll click on Export. And what that did, it just downloaded right here on my local computer this certificate signing request, which has the information we could then provide to a CA in order for that CA to create and sign a certificate that this Palo Alto firewall could then use. So if we opened up this certificate signing request, it would look like this. And I would just open it up in Notepad. And then what we do is we go ahead and do a Control A, which selects all the text here, and we'll do a Control C, so all that content is now sitting in my clipboard, in my buffer, if you will, on my PC here. And now I can go out to the certificate authority and I can paste this in as part of my certificate request. So now I've opened up a browser to the IP address of my Active Directory server, my Windows 2012 server that's running certificate services. So it's http:// 192.168.1.111/certserve, which is the URL you'd go to access these certificate services on that Windows 2012 server. So now that we're here, we're going to go ahead and request a certificate. So we'll just click on the link, request a certificate. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on advanced certificate request. And right here, it's asking me to go ahead and paste that base64 encoded certificate request right here. So I'll click inside of this box, and we could do a Control V to paste it if we're on a Windows computer, or we could right click and do a paste here, and that would paste all that content in. And then we'll simply click on submit. Now, through the magic of me telling the certificate server that we want it to automatically approve and issue certificates, we don't have to wait for an administrator to go click and manually approve it. So what's happening now is now giving us the opportunity to download that certificate. So I'm going to go ahead and click on base64. That's the format that we're going to want the certificate in. And then we'll click on download certificate right here. So that is downloaded to my computer a certificate called certnew openparen1closeParen.cer. And that's because I've already got a file called certnew.cer in my downloads folder. And so this is the second one. So it did the parentheses with the 1. And so I'd like us to remember what that is. That's the Palo Alto Firewall's identity certificate that we just got from a certificate authority. So what I think we should do is let's go rename that file so we can make sure we identify it clearly when we go to apply that. So what I've done is I renamed it to pa-id-cert.cer. I also created a folder called _certs, and I put that into that folder. That way, when we need to go use that certificate and apply it on the Palo Alto Firewall, we'll know where it is. Now, one other thing that we need to do is we also need to have a copy of our certificate authority's root certificate on the Palo Alto Firewall itself. So we also need to download that, the CA's root certificate, from our Microsoft CA server. So to do that, we're going to go back to the interface, the graphical user interface for the Microsoft Certificate Services, and I'm going to go back to the home page for that. And on this main page, I've got a link for download a CA certificate, certificate chain, or CRL, which is a certificate revocation list. So we'll click on the download a CA certificate link here, and I want base64, and we'll simply click on download CA certificate, and that will download that certificate, that root CA certificate, to my local computer. And this is where it gets a little bit dicey, because check this out. So that was the identity certificate for the Palo Alto Firewall. So I have since renamed that. And now, because I downloaded the root CA certificate, because there was a file already called certnew.cer there, it also called it in parentheses 1. If I'd left this alone, it would have called this 2, I suppose. But we're also going to go rename that guy too, so we know exactly what it is. So there it is. So this one right here is that one we just downloaded, which is the root CA certificate. Now we need to install both of those on the Palo Alto Firewall. To install these, we're going to go back to the Device tab, and then on the left, we're going to go down to Certificates. That's where we currently are. And we are going to click on Import, this hyperlink near the bottom here. So we'll click on Import, and we're going to import the root CA certificate first. So we can name it here. And for the file, we'll click on Browse. We'll go to that certs folder under Downloads, and we'll select the root CA cert. We'll double click on that to select it, and then we'll simply click on OK. The second import we're going to do, as we click on the import link one more time, is we're now going to import the actual identity certificate that CA issued to the Palo Alto Firewall, or rather to us on behalf of the Palo Alto Firewall. So for the name, I'm going to name this the same name, PA-SSL, as I had done originally in the CSR. So if we look down here it says PA-SSL, and that's how it's going to link it and say, oh, this is the same certificate you were working on the request for earlier, and it'll take that one out of a pending state if it's successful. For the certificate file, we'll go ahead and click on Browse, and we'll grab our PA-ID cert by double clicking on it, and we'll click on OK. And let me just expand this column just a little bit. So now it shows that this Palo Alto SSL certificate is valid, and we can now use it as part of our Global Protect SSL VPN solution if we'd like. Also, before we leave this, I'm going to click on Commit and confirm that commit so that any changes that we've done are now going to be part of the running configuration on the Palo Alto firewall. And that looks great. So we'll click on Close. In this nugget, we've demonstrated the steps to do a certificate signing request on the Palo Alto firewall and actually get a certificate from a certificate authority. We also walked through the process of downloading and installing the root CA certificate on the Palo Alto firewall. And this is all in preparation for using that certificate as part of our Global Protect SSL VPN solution. So I'm glad you joined me for this nugget. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.